So I think that the deviations from the book in this episode of Little Fires Everywhere, this is season 1, episode 6, The Uncanny, I think that those deviations from the book by Celeste Ng are causing some thematic dissonance where the themes don't quite gel or flow. There's things that are kind of throwing monkey wrenches into the works. But overall, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a good character study and it had a lot of emotionally compelling moments. And overall, I was really impressed with that, considering that this episode had no forward momentum to the plot whatsoever. It was just revealing things that had happened in the past. But it was a big reveal because it was going into the questions that we've probably had for a long time about Mia, at least if you didn't read the book. But before I get into that, let me just say, if you're enjoying what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss more videos like this one. And while you're at it, why don't you give me a like? I'd really appreciate it. So, getting into this episode, the name of the episode comes from a quote from Freud that Mia's professor in college brings to her attention, and I didn't recognize the actress at first, but then I looked her up, and it's actually the actress who voices the princess in The Princess and the Frog movie, and I've seen her on a lot of interviews behind the scenes for that movie, so it was kind of funny. She was very memorable looking, and this is an important role. They've changed her significantly from the books, but she does give Mia important advice, and it has a very formative effect on her in the book and in the show. And in this episode, she tells Mia, and this is where the episode gets its title, that in her art, Mia should pursue the frightening, the spontaneous, and the uncanny, and that she should pursue the themes of fire. And I'm kind of paraphrasing that a bit. I think the exact quote is slightly different, but the general idea is kind of consistent with the theme of this story, which is obviously summed up in Little Fires Everywhere, that all these people are kind of starting little acts of rebellion as they go beyond the surface level routines that people fall into and actually pursue those things which they once knew about themselves but have forgotten through routines and through going about the things that they have been told that they should be doing. And this theme kind of plays out in this episode in that we see Elena having her third child, and it was a very sad scene when she finds out she's pregnant for the fourth time. And I understand that some people might not find not wanting another child very sympathetic, but in this particular situation, I felt very badly for her because she clearly feels like she's losing out on opportunities at work because of her kids. And we saw a coworker getting promoted over her because she didn't have to take off time to give birth. And honestly, I don't know how people do it with 4 kids that young. It's really crazy. It would be a lot for anyone. And it doesn't seem like she's getting a lot of help from her husband, who kind of implicates that when he says, oh, 4 kids isn't that different than 3, and encourages her to go ahead and have this kid. And he says he hopes it's a girl. Now, the husband, played by Joshua Jackson in the present, and I don't know the actor's name in the past, he's a nice guy, but I just think he's kind of unassuming and just doesn't see how all these children are causing Elena to give up on her dreams. And the episode delved into abortion a lot. I didn't really appreciate what it had to say because I feel like when you see Elena in the future, I don't think she seems particularly saddened by the choices she's made. Are we really supposed to believe she would have been happier if she had not had a 4th child? She didn't have Izzy and she pursued her job more wholeheartedly. I'm struggling to buy that, but we do see a lot of scenes in the past that she's really struggling because she's not getting enough support from her husband. And we see her, I feel like she was probably struggling with postpartum depression, though they never put that name to it. And all these kids are crying and she's struggling. And there was one particular scene that stood out where AnnaSophia Robb, who's playing Elena in the past, has just this breakdown and starts throwing plates on the floor. And that scene was just really emotionally raw and really well done. Probably the highlight of the episode for me personally. And it was something I related a lot to because I only have one kid, but I know how it can feel sometimes when your child is crying and you just can't make him stop and you just feel like a failure and you just find the love that you have for that child just dissipating in your helplessness. And I totally get that, and it's something I relate to. And I thought it was really well done and really well acted. And of course, this causes her to go consider having an affair with Jamie, and she almost does, but she's stopped at the last second by the realization that he's taking advantage of her, and this isn't who she is. So to me, these changes from the books are confusing because if Elena's whole problem is that she's a rule follower who isn't flexible enough, then are we supposed to think she should have had an affair with Jamie in this situation where he was just trying to take advantage of her? That would seem to go against that theme. And overall, I just felt like the idea that she shouldn't have had Izzy, which is what you would have to say the themes would push her to do, doesn't really gel with what we've seen so far in the story. Like, it's hard for me to, it feels very cold-hearted to say that she should have aborted her daughter instead of having her, and that would somehow have improved her life. But getting back to Mia, who is played by Tiffany Boone in this episode, it's kind of funny because they had Kerry Washington previously play Mia in a flashback sequence where we saw Pearl as a baby, but here we have Tiffany Boone, and they show her with young Pearl all the way until Pearl is a toddler before they give us Kerry Washington again. So there's kind of a snafu there, or something that didn't get thought through entirely, and just kind of made me laugh. This is a funny episode for me because I feel like the relationship with her professor is supposed to be viewed positively here. It's supposed to be inspirational, but to me it's a predatory relationship. Like, if you swapped out the professor with a male character and had her having a relationship with a male of the same age as the professor under the same circumstances, no way would you view that as romantic. And there's already stereotypes out there that lesbians are predatory, so this portrayal, to me, I don't know what they were going for because I feel like they're trying to make it look like a positive thing, but it's highly disturbing, and it creates some soap opera-like aspects because while she's visiting her family and trying to help them get over their grief of her lost brother Warren, more on that later, she gets a phone call, and she calls someone from home and finds out that her professor/lover has died of cancer, which she contracted. She found out she had 2 months earlier, and she never told her, and she's dead now. Now, in the book, obviously, her professor was in a relationship with a different woman, and Mia knew that she had cancer, and she knew that she was dying, which makes a lot more sense. This manner of developing it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it just having the death of Mia's brother and then the death of her lover back to back, like within 5 minutes of screen time, I think. It feels very melodramatic and like something you would see in a soap opera. But the biggest revelation this episode, besides the influence that her professor had on her, was that we saw how she ended up with Pearl, which she was a birth surrogate, and after the death of her brother, Warren, and the chilled reception she received from her parents, she decided to keep the child, even though she had been paid $12,000 to give birth to Pearl, and she went on the run so that she could keep the child and not turn it over to the birth father and to the mother. So I don't like this decision. I think it's very selfish. I don't think the show views it entirely as a unselfish decision, but it kind of seems to justify it and to go along with it. And to me, I find it frustrating that every time someone makes a decision in this show that the show seems to want you to agree with, in the situation with Bebe and now in the situation with Mia, which we didn't know up till this point, but I knew as I had read the book, it's a situation where it ignores the hurt that their choices are causing to other people. Because this couple, it's the birth father, so he has a right to see his daughter too. It's not right that Mia just decides for Pearl that Pearl is not going to have her father in her life. But two other aspects of the situation really bother me. One, this family paid her the money, so it's wrong for her to leave when she had agreed to do it. And then On top of that, they've wasted a year of their lives. They could have used a different birth surrogate, and now they're not going to have the daughter. To me, that's really wrong for her to do that to them. And two, I feel like it's wrong to Pearl because she's causing Pearl to live this uprooted, constantly transient existence when I feel like she obviously would have been in a better situation with her birth father and with this stability that the home that the birth father and his wife could have provided for her. And it's wrong for Mia to make that choice for Pearl, in my opinion. So this episode, obviously, like I said, I feel like some of the deviations from the book created some thematic dissonance. They created some soap opera-like moments. But overall, I was really impressed with AnnaSophia Robb's performance. I felt like she did a really good job channeling young Reese Witherspoon. I appreciated that they finally explained what was going on with Jamie. It was confirmed, in my opinion, that he's a narcissistic dirtbag because he was trying to take advantage of a woman in postpartum depression. Although realistically, I don't think she would want to be having sex with anyone in that position. I don't really understand why they're acting like, oh, she would be desirous of that, because she's not. That's just the last thing she would be thinking of. But overall, I thought it was a good episode, some emotionally compelling moments, and I think it's interesting. I think they're definitely angling for a second season because the case with Bebe has not seen a whole lot of forward development since a few episodes ago. So we'll see, but I tend to think they're gearing up for more seasons of this, which I'm not sure I would be on board for. I feel like I enjoy this as a limited series, but I wouldn't enjoy it as a show that tried to go on for season after season after season. But we'll see what they do with it. So that's my review of Little Fires Everywhere, Season 1, Episode 6, The Uncanny. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you're interested in seeing more videos like this one, please subscribe to the channel Plot First.